Hello YouTube, welcome back to our introduction to program with Python series. So in this video, we're going to be looking at what tuples are. Tuples or tuples, I don't know what they're called. Some people say tuples, others say tuples. So let me know in the comment section what you think it is. Is it a tuple or a tuple? So let me know in the comment section below what you think is a tuple, how it's pronounced, but I call it a tuple. Okay, so let me know what you guys think it is. Is it a tuple or a tuple? Okay, so having a list inside of another list, basically that's a matrix, right? So I actually did an error here and I didn't actually change the writings, right? I actually just copied this and then forgot to change the writing. So that's an error right there, and there's supposed to be a tuple. These are just elements within simply parentheses, right? Just like a list, but now instead of using a square bracket, you're going to be using a parenthesis. And in list, tuples are immutable data structures in Python, meaning that you can change elements of a tuple once the tuple is created. That's it. So once you create a tuple, you can't modify or update the elements of a tuple. It is what we call immutable in Python. Okay, so in this video we're going to be looking at tuples and look at all these things of immutability and all that stuff. So actually, let's actually find the solution for the last assignment that I gave you guys. So basically, you have a two-dimensional array and you're supposed to find the maximum element from this two-dimensional array. So this is a two-dimensional array. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and go inside of my assignments folder and just delete everything and paste it in there. So once I have this, I'm going to import I'm going to go ahead and import list from typing. So I'm going to say from typing import list, just like that. So that's basically it. So once I have list created, I'm going to go ahead and do the following. So I'm going to go ahead and simply say you're going to find the maximum element instead of this. I'm going to say max. I'm going to show you two ways of doing this thing. Okay, so to max value, and it's going to be equals to let's say the max value is going to be of type integer and it's going to be equals to 0. Okay, so this is not the possibly the best way to do it, but I want you to understand a certain concept. That's why I'm using this approach. Okay, so for row in numbers, what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to say row underscore max, right, is going to be equals to okay, let me just show you all the ways of doing this actually. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to now okay, I'm going to go say for num in row. Okay, so I'm going to get the row is going to be a list. We're going to use the inner list to iterate through the list that we get. I'm going to say I'm going to check if num is greater or equals to max value, and our max value is by default 0. So if that's true, what we're going to go ahead and do is say max value is going to be equals to num, just like that. So num. So good. So once you have that, we can go ahead and print out max value. So max value, actually, let's look at this list and find out what the maximum value is. I think the maximum value is 50 for now. So let's actually look and clear this and then run the code. We actually we're running the wrong code, right? So I have to change my directory back. So change directory back, and then I'm going to change directory. Let me see where I am. Okay, so I'm going to Python 3 and then assignments and then run the code. So I get back 50. Max is 50. That's good. Okay, so we have the maximum value as 50. That's one way of doing it. Let's look at another way of doing the same thing. Okay, so I want to show you multiple ways of doing things in Python so you guys have a clear understanding of it. So I'm going to go ahead and simply do the following. So I'm going to simply say for row in numbers, right? For row in numbers, okay, what you're going to go ahead and do, you're going to simply say max. So I'm going to simply say row underscore max is going to be equals to max of that row. Okay, it's going to return to us a row of max of each row. We check if row underscore max is greater or equals to max value. So max value, and we're going to go ahead and say max underscore value equals to row max, just like that. So that's another way you can do it. If you run the code again, we should get back 50. Great. Okay, that's another way of doing it. So let's look at another way of doing it. There are a couple of ways of doing this in Python. I just wanted you guys to have a diverse thinking of how to work with these things in Python. You can also do it is also using list comprehension. So you can just simply say I want to go ahead and do the following. So I'm going to say print. I can just go ahead and print it at max. I just want to print out the results straight away, so I don't want to waste time. So I'm going to say max of x, and I'm going to say max of x. I'm going to say for x in number, just like that. So that's run the code again. We get back. Let's see. We get back. Let me just go back in here. Comment this out. Go in here, we run the code. Now we should get back 50 as well. So that's how we can do it using so this is gonna be a tuple, kind of like a tuple comprehension. You can also do the same thing using a list comprehension in Python. I just want you to be okay using these things in Python. Okay, so these are things that you come across often. Okay, let me just make sure that I have that properly done. So this is going to be marks of this right here. So yeah, that's also need to keep square brackets here. Let me see. We have an area. So say this is gonna be print is not yeah, that's basically it. So let me see if I have anything done there. So this doesn't have a closing, so closing should be marks of this right here. Okay, so I think let me just take some time to figure out what I have done. So this is supposed to be in here. Okay, so marks of okay, so marks of this, and then close that off. So I'm just go ahead and close that parenthesis off. So yeah, that's a bit, I was just a bit confused about the parenthesis and the opening and closing, but that's basically the code. And if you run it again, you should also get back 50. So that's those are how many ways you have seen. 1, 2, 3, and 4 different ways of finding the solution in Python. So I know you guys probably ignore these things and just fall back to this, but if you really want to understand programming, just focus on these ones because they really give you a way of thinking. These are just inbuilt functions that you're using in Python without having to do anything. So focus on this and not this one. These ones will just come along as you go. Okay. So that's basically how we can different approaches of solving the same question. So let's go ahead and jump into to working with tuples or tuples, whatever you guys might call it. Okay. So this is gonna be file. I think it's gonna be file 18. Yeah. So let's go ahead and create that file. So I'm going to say part 18. So part underscore 18.py. So I have that file and I'm going to go ahead. You're going to work with tuples in Python. So what's a tuple or a tuple in Python? So a tuple are similar to list in Python, except that they have the parentheses like this instead of the square bracket like this. Yeah, so that's the difference in a tuple and a list. Another difference is that lists are immutable. Once a list is created, you can't modify or change anything about the list. You can add anything to a list. So difference with one tuple is created, it can be it cannot be mutated, right? It's immutable. That's why I mentioned earlier on. So element once a tuple is created, you can't mutate element of a tuple, and elements of a tuple can be of any data type, right? So they are basically homogeneous data structures. Okay, so the different data types must not be homogeneous or must not be the same data types. So can be different data types, and that's what we call heterogeneous data structure in Python. So creating a tuple, let's see how we can create a tuple. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is just create empty tuple. Okay, so how do you create an empty tuple in Python? We're just going to say empty, there's a variable name, just say empty tuple, and then equals to, and then just this parenthesis, opening and closing parenthesis. So that's basically a tuple. You can go ahead and print it out. So print out let's just print out empty tuple, just like that. So I go back by terminal, clear this chain directory into basic, and then finally say python 3 part, and it's gonna be part 18, and then I can run that, so you can get back an empty tuple there. So let me just minimize this a bit, clear the terminal, and then run the code, so you get back an empty tuple, right? So good. Okay, that's how you can create an empty tuple. And again, we have type hints in Python, which is just more in Python, and I want you guys to learn more in Python. So you can create a tuple like this and add stuff to it, and it will all work. But I want to go ahead and show how. Okay, let me just add some stuff to it, and let's see, and then later move on to creating an empty tuple. So that's how you can create a tuple. And once a tuple is created, you cannot modify, you cannot add elements to it, you cannot delete elements from it. It's immutable. That's what you say. Not mutable. Okay, it's immutable elements in Python. Okay, that's how you can create a tuple, just like that. So once you have that, you can also, this can be a string, you can add the strings in here, this heterogeneous data type. So you can say hello world. Okay, just run the code again. So if you run the code, you get back. So yeah, so that you can also have a list instead of a tuple like this. You can have a tuple instead of another tuple, and that would all work. Okay, so that's basically it. So that's what we mean by a tuple heterogeneous, meaning that in another programming language, if it's going to be a list, you're just going to you're only allowed to store a list instead of that tuple. But in Python, you can store any data structure, any data type you want instead of a tuple. Okay, good. So once we have looked at tuples and tuples being heterogeneous or mixed elements types, tuples being mixed elements types, we can add any data in form of it. So another way you can create a tuple is just by simply, you can remove the parentheses if you want, and just like this, yeah, that's also a tuple, right? So if I go here and write the code, we also get back a tuple, and you can check the type of the tuple is by saying type, and then finally wrapping this in parentheses. So that's going to return to you the type of this. You can see the type is a tuple or a tuple, whatever you pronounce it as. So good, that's how you can create a tuple in Python with the parentheses or without the parentheses is a tuple. Okay, so I'm just how you can include typing. So from typing, I'm going to go ahead and import a tuple, just like that, a tuple or a tuple, whatever you call it, and then here I'm going to say a tuple, just like that. So that's how you can create a tuple with type hints in Python, and it also works. Okay, so good. Once we have everything set up and running, let's look at single element tuple. So how do you create a single element tuple? Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and simply say these three. Okay, so once I say 3, I'm going to just write 3 in parentheses like this. So you might think that, okay, this is a tuple, right? So let's check if it's actually a tuple. No, it's not a tuple, it's a string. So why is it not a tuple? That's crazy. Why is it not a tuple? So this is actually a single element tuple in Python, and a single element tuple in Python I have this. So whenever you're creating a single element in Python, you have to say comma after it. Okay, the space is not compulsory, you can just say this, but you have to say comma after it. And now you can see now it's a tuple. So without the comma, is simply treated as an integer, but with the comma now it becomes a tuple. So that's how we can create a single element tuple. Sometimes you might run this and make an error, but so keep this in mind. That's how you can create a single element tuple in Python. Okay, it can be really confusing and really angry. Like you get angry, why is it like that? But yeah, that's basically it, how it is. So now let's go ahead and check the different. You have checked the different, how you can check the type. I have checked how the type. So I can also go ahead and print out this element empty tuple. It's not really an empty tuple, but let's just leave it that way and run the code again. You can see now it's a tuple. So that's how you can create an element, single element tuple. Don't forget the comma. I always do that mistake. Okay, so that's basically how you can work with a single element tuple. Again, tuples are also indexed the same way as a list are, right? So you can go ahead and print out index 0, and that should return to me just 3, right? So that's basically it. The same way lists are indexed, the same way we have tuples index. So that's basically it. So let me just keep some random values in here. We get back 3. We can change that to say 4. If I run the code again, we get back 60. So that's basically it, how single how we can work with tuples and indexes with tuple. Again, if you want to check about indexes, elements, I've explained that all in the last videos, so you can check about those in the you can go ahead and check out those part of the code. I don't want to go ahead and start repeating myself in here, so you can check out the previous videos where I explain indexing and stuff like that when you're talking about list or arrays, or they're called list in Python, right? So yeah, that's basically it, how you can work with indexing. Okay, so now let's look at the negative indexing. Also, you can also use negative indexing. I told negative indexing, we start counting from the back. Okay, so if I go ahead and run the code now, you should get back 4, because this is 1, -1, -2, -3, -4. That's how you get back 4. Okay, so that's how negative indexing. We'll talk about this in Python. We talk about this in the last videos, and the same concept applies here. Okay, and you can also use tuple slicing. We also discussed this in list slicing already, so I'm not going to go into depth in here. So you can see we get back the same stuff. Okay, so you start to specify where to start from and where to end. So it's going to take a chunk of that tuple. So let's say that you want to start from index 2, 3, and we want to go until index 4, that until index 3, that's be index 4, to be 4, right? So if I go here and run the code, we should get back that. So okay, we just say 5, let's say 5 and see. Yeah, we get back that. So that's basically how also a list indexing works. You also have the negative one. So if you just say colon, it's going to return to us the whole tuple, and if you say negative value, it's going to return to from the back, right? That's starting from the back. That's basically it from the back until the end. So that's basically it, how you can work with tuples and stuff like that. So yeah, so let's look at some methods that you can use with tuples. So tuples have the same way methods as the same things as strings, so that's why I don't want to go into depth. Let me just change this name. It's not empty. Let me just say integer tuple. So to have it's not like an empty tuple, because it's really not empty. Okay, so you can just also say, I can say print int of underscore tuple, and I can say dot count. We have different methods. So let's count the number of times 3 appears in that tuple, and it's only 1 time. So if I go in here and add another 3, that should now be 2 times, right? So 2. Good. That's just a method we can use. There are different methods, but I'm just gonna go over a few. So I'm gonna say index of 3. So it's going to return to us the first index of 3, because the first index is 0. So whenever it meets 3, it just return to us its index, right? So if I delete this right here, it's going to return to us the very last index, which is going to be 4, right? So yeah, that's it. So we see how to work with indexing and different just some methods that you can use with tuples. There are a ton of these methods, but uh, comparing list and tuples has less methods with compared to list, because we can't add anything to a list. A tuple once is created, so we don't have the append method like in a list. We can't remove stuff, so we don't have the pop or the remove method like in a list. So it has fewer. I think just has like I think two methods that you can use with this. So if I say dot, yeah, I just had actually just two methods that you can use, so count and index, and we have seen how to use those. So tuples are immutable, so you can do much with tuples once they are created. So but they have their use cases, and we'll see their use cases later on. Okay, so let's see how we can iterate through a tuple. So let's say for x in int tuple, we're just going to go ahead and print out that x, and you're just going to print out x, right? We get back x. So that's basically it. We can also use a tuple. I don't know. I think they're called tuple comprehensions, or yeah. Let's agree. We have list actually these are list comprehensions and not tuple comprehension. Let's say for x, and then let's say for x in int underscore tuple, and if I run that, we get back the list right there. So yeah, that's basically it. So and then we can also check for elements in the tuple. You can just say print print 2 in int tuple, int underscore tuple. So it's going to check if 2 is in this tuple. That's basically just like in English, 2 is 2 inside of this tuple, and it's going to return to us either yes or no, like a boolean value, right? A true or a false. So just printing out the result. So that's basically how you can check for an element that's false, right? So let's change that to be 3. 3 is definitely in the tuple, so that should be true, right? So yeah, that's how you can check for elements inside prints for an element instead of a tuple. So let's see how we can convert a list to a tuple. So let's do that. I'm just going to go here and say my underscore list equals to, and it's going to be let me just use type hint here. So list is going to be of type list. Okay, let me just go ahead and import it here. So I want to go ahead and say list right here. So I'm going to create a list right here, and I'm going to go ahead and say the list is going to have the following. So 1 2 3 4, right? So I'm going to go ahead and simply do the following. So I'm going to say convert tuple, right? So I'm going to say converted tuple. So I'm going to say converted underscore tuple is going to be equals to tuple, and then you go ahead and pass in my list, my underscore list, which is this variable we have up here. So my list, let me get that spelling right. So my list, right? Good. So once you have that, you're just converting converted tuple into a list. So you can actually just print out its type, and you can just say the type of it to check out if it has been converted actually to a tuple. So run that, and now you can see it's not being converted to a tuple. So that's how you can convert other data, to convert a list into basically a tuple, and you can also print out that tuple if you want. So convert a tuple, and now it should be with the round brackets instead of the square brackets, right? So yeah, that's basically how you can convert something to a tuple. So that's basically it for tuples. And tuples basically are immutable. You can't update a tuple, you can't modify a tuple, you can't remove any element from a tuple, you can't add an element to a tuple once it's created. So tuple have the limited methods that you can use. So but tuple has its use cases, and we'll look at that. So if you want to create a collection of elements that a person cannot update, then you'll be going for a tuple, right? So you're trying to do something that involves like security or something, you can use a tuple. There are many use cases of it, so just be aware that tuples are immutable in Python, meaning that once you create a tuple, you cannot add elements to it, you can delete elements from it, stuff like that. Okay, so that's enough of the tuples. So yeah, that's all I wanted to cover in this video. So in the next video, we'll look at Python dictionaries. That will be covering in the next video, which is just key value pairs. So thank you for watching. Again, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like the video, you share with anyone who think might find it helpful, and also you subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos like this. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Keep safe.